Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You are entering the Stone Zone, and I am your host, Roger Stone. Last night, I had dinner with Ross Albrecht and his wife, Caroline. If you're unfamiliar with Ross Albrecht, he is the young man who invented the dark web. He was charged and sentenced to life in prison, falsely claiming that he himself had sold drugs and guns on the dark web, which is untrue. Actually, charging Ross Albrecht for inventing the dark web would be like charging Alexander Graham Bell for inventing the telephone because someone else later did a drug deal over the phone. In fact, those who did sell illicit items over the dark web, guns, drugs, and so on, were never actually charged. The government's hostility towards Ross Albrecht, who was rightfully pardoned by President Donald Trump, I was an advocate for that pardon, really has to do with the Biden administration's hostility to cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is the alternative Bitcoin monetary system that has been embraced by President Donald Trump and his crypto advisor, Jeffrey Sachs, as well as his Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent. In fact, Ross Albrecht very graciously invited me to join him at a Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas, May 27th through 29th. I was honored and I will probably join him. The Biden administration's hostility to crypto manifested itself in something called Choke Point 2.0, in which many of the early entrepreneurs in this alternative currency system were framed for non-existent crimes. The Biden administration insisted that Bitcoins were a security and people were charged with selling and buying securities without a license. Nonsense. Now the cryptocurrency market is flourishing under President Donald Trump. John Brennan, the former CIA director, has his panties in a twist. He says he's appalled that the National Director of Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has fired two of his spies who were still on the national security staff. Frankly, I'm the one who's appalled. This criminal, who orchestrated the Russian collusion hoax, lied to Congress about spying on a Senate committee that was investigating his illegal use of torture as the CIA director, and violated both the law and, well, my constitutional rights, among others, including Donald Trump's, is incredible. Brennan can be heard here whining about the fact that Tulsi Gabbard is cleaning house when it comes to deep state operatives. Let's remember, she also referred several national security officials to the Department of Justice for illegal leaking. Whether those are the same people she has fired, well, we don't know that yet. Listen to John Brennan whine.
This whole thing just makes me livid. It's appalling and outrageous and demonstrates why Tulsi Gabbard never should have been confirmed as Director of National Intelligence. Michael Collins and Marie Langen-Rykoff are two of the most experienced, accomplished, and talented analysts in the entire U.S. intelligence community. With over 60 years of combined experience, they have worked for successive administrations since the 1990s. They have demonstrated time and time again their capabilities, their competence, their integrity, and they have served as role models for a generation of intelligence officers inside of CIA. They're CIA officers by background and by training. And this is going to have real reverberations within the workforce because, as Congressman Hines pointed out, it's clearly a signal to tell analysts throughout the intelligence community, you tell the truth, you provide objective analysis as you're supposed to be doing, you are running the risk of getting fired. And Michael and Maria are really the quintessential analysts that you want to have providing insight and information and analysis to policymakers so they make the right decisions for U.S. policymakers. But this is a very tangible example of such dangerous and insidious corruption within the Trump administration.
This man is clearly delusional. It was John Brennan who famously helped spread the phony Steele dossier back in 2016, which alleged that then candidate Donald Trump was somehow compromised by Vladimir Putin and the Russians. He is no stranger to attacking our 47th and 45th president with his greatest hits, including claims that President Trump committed acts of treason, among dozens of other baseless claims. It's important to remember that people like Brennan and his ilk are always guilty of exactly the thing they attacked Trump and his allies for. These claims, of course, have been proven to be patently false and were likely known to have been fabricated at the time Brennan and his allies were disseminating them. In fact, it was John Brennan who was the true manifestation of election interference in 2016. Brennan knew that the Steele dossier, which was used to justify the FISA warrants that were used to spy on President Trump's campaign, as well as to justify the appointment of the special counsel Robert Mueller, was a fraud. In fact, substantial forensic evidence exists that shows that the alleged hack of the Democrat National Committee, which Brennan insisted took place on the part of Russian intelligence, actually never took place. In fact, forensic evidence demonstrated, based on the download times of the files that were purloined from the Democrat National Committee, that those were downloaded to a portable drive and taken out the back door. Now we know, according to the report by special counsel John Durham, that Brennan cooked up the Russian collusion hoax with President Barack Obama, Vice President Joe Biden. They knew the Steele dossier was a fraud. They also knew that no one had conducted an online hack of the Democrat National Committee. But this was cooked up to allow Hillary Clinton's campaign to vilify Donald Trump as a pawn of Vladimir Putin. It's also been confirmed that CIA Director Brennan identified over 24 Trump advisors, including myself, and then went to the other English-speaking nations' intelligence communities, urging them to surveil them. He did this, of course, without any probable cause. Brennan's fingerprints are all over the alleged FISA warrants and the wiretaps that were used during the same time leading up to the 2016 presidential election, similarly targeting President Donald Trump. It is also true that John Brennan and his cronies were in the forefront of those in the intelligence community who correctly were billed by the New York Post as spies who lied. Remember, he was among the 51 former intelligence officials who officially penned a letter proclaiming that the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop were Russian disinformation and propaganda. We now know, of course, that that was yet another one of his lies. What's amazing is that Brennan and his co-conspirators view themselves as a select group of insiders and elites who alone possess the intelligence and judgment to determine who the leader of the free world should be. That power, however, thank God, lies solely with the American people. A second term for Donald Trump actually threatens to take away Brennan's ability to abuse the powers of the intelligence community against their political opponents. It actually threatens to be put in the position of being held legally to account for their egregious criminal acts. For those who don't know much about John Brennan, his anti-American leanings should come as no surprise. In 1980, he confessed during a lie detector test that he had supported the Communist Party of America candidates in not just one, but 4 different elections. Former FBI Special Agent John Guandolo also led counterterrorism efforts to the agency following 9/11, including investigating the attack on the Pentagon and developing the FBI's counterterrorism program, revealed that John Brennan, when he was the CIA station chief in Saudi Arabia, had actually converted to radical Islam. Guandolo's assertion, I've interviewed him right here in the Stone Zone, was confirmed by another CIA station chief, a man named Brad Johnson, who confirmed it as both well-known and common knowledge that Brennan had converted to Islam. In fact, John Brennan even got caught spying on a U.S. Senate committee that was investigating his illegal use of torture. If you're spying on the U.S. Senate, what's the penalty for that? Brennan and his CIA operators in Saudi Arabia have been accused of withholding information on several of the 9/11 hijackers that could have helped the FBI stop the Islamic terrorists, with Brennan himself actually approving the visas for 4 of the hijackers who would eventually crash American Airlines 577 into the World Trade Center. The report that confirmed this also noted how the CIA used official resources to spy on fellow law enforcement officers. How surprising. I don't have to remind you, CIA also worked with well-known terrorist-linked organizations such as ISIS, which are linked with global terror finance organizations like Hezbollah and Hamas. Brennan, under CIA director under Barack Obama, actually, infamously stated the ISIS members were, quote, not Muslims. Not sure what planet this guy lives on. Simply put, John Brennan's words deserve no weight when it comes to anything political, and he is now screaming. Why? Because I think he himself fears prosecution. Also demonstrates exactly why Tulsi Gabbard is exactly the right woman for the job she holds. In the meantime, Real ID is coming to pass. Real ID is this government-approved ID that you will need to get on a plane or get entry into a government building. Real ID has actually been in the works since the Bush era as part of the war on terror reforms that included the Patriot Act, the FISA secret courts, and ubiquitous national security agency spying on American citizens without a warrant. I didn't really realize I needed a real ID to board an airplane until I planned to go to the Italian-American Civil Rights League event in Queens this weekend. And then I realized when I went to the airport, I would need such an ID to board a plane. It's a terrible idea. When we come back, I'm going to tell you exactly why. In the meantime, you're tuned in to the Stone Zone. Here we talk news, politics, history, food, culture, you name it. We'll be right back in the Stone Zone. And yes, we're going to take a few more of your questions at AskStone@StoneZone.com. We have a few questions left over from yesterday, but it's AskStone@StoneZone.com. Don't go away. We'll be right back in the zone.
The Stone Zone
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
Impact confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
Demonic threat level increasing.
Hold the line!
All the power of hell cowering before one man.
id Software presents Doom, The Dark Ages. Available now on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC.
Rated M for mature.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back in the Stone Zone. We were talking about the implementation of Real ID. Real ID, as I said, began back in the Bush era. That's when it was first approved by the Congress. But ultimately, the movement was resisted by a number of states who said that they refused to comply because Real ID was a fundamental violation of their sovereignty. The implementation of Real ID kept getting delayed, but it appears, unfortunately, that its time has finally come. With a flooding of mass illegal immigration and major election integrity concerns, the idea of a Real ID is becoming more appealing to some conservatives in search to answers to these lingering national crises. The Department of Homeland Security is telling Americans they must comply with Real ID mandates to board airplanes. You will need Real ID to fly. Real IDs makes identification harder to forge, thwarting criminals and terrorists. If you plan to fly, make sure you get your Real ID so you won't be denied from your flight or to face travel delays. That was what Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said recently on X. These IDs keep our country safe because they help prevent fraud and they enhance security. Please do your part to protect our community. This announcement was met with a lot of opposition, including from yours truly, because we believe that Real ID is an unnecessary and a cumbersome bureaucratic requirement at best, and a grave step closer towards a federal police state at worst. Real ID, in my view, is a Trojan horse that will slide into other forms of government access, monitoring, and control over you. Do you really eventually want to have a mandated social credit score and your accounts frozen if you refuse to fall in line? I don't think that it's paranoia to think that this will ultimately morph into biometric tracking of every single American. We elected Donald Trump to destroy the deep state and expose the truth about 9/11, not perpetuate the nightmare that was designed to foist upon us. I actually favor abolishing the TSA. I think we should flush Real ID. The Real ID process came with a notification that my face will be logged into a facial recognition database. No thanks. Here's a better idea. I'd say we get rid of the TSA starting May 7th and scrap this Real ID nonsense. Less than 5 years ago, at the peak of COVID hysteria, the mandates were being widely proposed for individuals to submit their biometric data to be able to go to work, to worship in church, to shop at a grocery store. The precedent has been set for these sort of actions to be taken during a crisis, and Real ID, in my opinion, would be a powerful tool for bureaucrats to reinforce a ghastly new set of controls. Real ID creates an information sharing culture between the state and the federal government where sensitive personal information about citizens is continually flowing back and forth. This data will be stored and eventually harvested. It's not difficult to imagine. Personal health details eventually being stored on a Real ID card with individuals forced to submit their papers to show that they have submitted to a battery of experimental vaccinations in order to conduct basic transactions. Real ID in the wrong hands could contain social credit scores to determine whether an individual is guilty of thinking wrong and subsequently then is frozen out of society. Real ID, in my opinion, opens the door to many sinister possibilities without much potential upside. The federal government is, after all, not known for its judiciousness when expanding their power and their authority. The feds are happy to meticulously whittle down the people's liberties over an extended period of time using dubious pretenses. We saw this with the Patriot Act, which we were told was put in place to protect us from Islamic terrorists, but ended up being used to spy on American citizens without a warrant, and which also allowed for permanent detention of a U.S. citizen in secret, without a public trial and an ability to defend oneself. No, in my opinion, Real ID is a mistake, and if Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem thinks that she has a future in national politics or a future as a national candidate, I think she should think twice. We got a lot of mail on this, a lot of email. I think most Americans agree with me. Real ID is a bad idea. When we come back, great news. The Secretary of Veterans Affairs has confirmed that department is going to end its testing on primates such as innocent dogs and cats. Don't go away. We'll be right back in the Stone Zone.
The Stone Zone
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Principles. Are there limits to the U.S. government's debt growth? What will happen if the debts are not curtailed? What should policymakers or investors do? Those are urgent questions that legendary investor and New York Times bestselling author Ray Dalio addresses in his new book, How Countries Go Broke, The Big Cycle. The book comes out in June and is available for pre-order today, wherever books are sold.
We off? 30 seconds of carefree bliss. Oof, like wind in your hair carefree. Oh, like using Clorox Disinfecting All-Purpose Cleaner in the home carefree. Yes! Like dog slobbing on the coffee table and cleaning it with Clorox Carefree? He's on a roll now. Spit toothpaste on the faucet? You got it. You got it. Peanut butter on the light switch. Oh, spritz, spritz. Spritz, spritz. Clorox, man. Clean feels good. Okay, we're back. Use as directed.
In golf, precision is everything, on and off the course. PGA of America chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business for smooth operations and seamless transactions. Together, we enhance ticketing and concessions for better fan experiences from gate to green. This is pro-level efficiency. This is PGA of America with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back in the Stone Zone. Based on an order by President Donald Trump, the National Archives has now released over 6 million pages of records relating to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. This is part of the President John F. Kennedy Assassinations Records collection that is kept by the National Archives. While this does include over 80,000 pages of previously classified records, which were released on March 18th, based on Executive Order 14176, there seemed to be a substantial number of records missing. For example, the House Select Committee on Assassinations, which was formed in the late 70s and conducted an exhaustive investigation, concluded that organized crime had played a substantial role in Kennedy's murder. Yet none of the documents that have been released by the National Archives pertain to organized crime involvement in the hit. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna is not satisfied that we know everything. And in fact, she has recently located 6 boxes of documents pertaining to the well-known gangster Carlos Marcello. That information will become public shortly. Additionally, there's a CIA operative named Joanides, who was well known. His material was reviewed by the Assassination Records Review Board back in the 90s, but there's nothing regarding this CIA operative and what he was up to in the material that we have seen thus far. Now I'm told that 7 boxes pertaining to Joanides has been found and will be released. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna is doing a yeoman job of trying to get to the truth. I do think that the president's initial order was a little narrowly drawn. And as we are now learning, the Department of State, the Department of Defense, the CIA, the FBI, even the IRS, Army Intelligence, and others still have videos, audios, documents, and transcripts that have not been released to the American people. I wrote a book on the Kennedy assassination, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, the case against LBJ, back in 2013. Nothing that I have seen yet convinces me that I'm wrong, that there was a plot that involved the Central Intelligence Agency, the organized crime, Big Texas Oil, and the big enchilada himself, Lyndon Baines Johnson. I mean, cui bono, who benefited. Lyndon Johnson was under investigation in two of the hottest corruption investigations in the 1960s, the Billy Sol Estes investigation and the Bobby Baker investigation. In fact, Attorney General Robert Kennedy, John Kennedy's brother, had begun telling people that LBJ would be dropped from the 1964 ticket and would be facing criminal charges. There's his motive. It was LBJ who convinced John Kennedy to visit Dallas. It was LBJ's Confederate, Texas Governor John Connally, who insisted that the motorcade, which was going from the the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport to the Merchandise Mart, both of them outside the city of Dallas, go into the city of Dallas and go through Dealey Plaza, where, of course, the presidential limousine came to a full stop. That's totally contrary to the Secret Service protocol manual. I'm wondering, among the missing material is the video by a man named Orville Nix. Orville Nix was an air-conditioned repairman. Like Abraham Zapruder, he was filming with his own personal 8mm camera, but his camera had a zoom lens. We know that the Assassination Records Review Board, set up in the late 1990s to look at the information regarding Kennedy's assassination, had the Nix film, which presumably has a close-up of JFK, could help shed light on whether Kennedy was, as a majority of the doctors at Parkland Hospital now say, shot from both the front and behind, meaning multiple shooters, meaning, of course, a conspiracy. So where is Orville Nix' film? I count on Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna of Florida to get to the bottom of these mysteries. She's being ably assisted by Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, while deep state bureaucrats continue to play hide and seek with these documents. Well, we're going to keep you posted on these developments, but look for some bombshell revelations coming in next week's congressional hearings. Meanwhile, the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Doug Collins, has confirmed that his department will end much of its testing of innocent dogs, cats, and other primates, such as monkeys, before a deadline set by Congress. Back in 2024, Congress enacted legislation to eliminate all tests on cats, dogs, and primates by 2026, but the VA is still conducting these horrific spinal cord injury related experiments on monkeys in San Diego. Collins confirmed the efforts during a congressional hearing about the budget this past Thursday. The changes come after years of campaigning by the watchdog organization White Coast Waste. We have had Justin from the White Coast West here on the show several times to talk about this. They seek nothing less than the cruel and unnecessary taxpayer funding of this animal research. Since 2016, that organization has worked to expose how the VIA was giving puppies heart attacks, injecting monkeys with angel dust, and crippling kittens, drilling into cat skulls, and much, much worse. Justin Goodman has come on the show several times from White Coat Waste to talk about this. It was President Donald Trump who laid the groundwork for this end to animal testing during his first term when he issued a directive to the Environmental Protection Agency to prioritize reducing animal testing by 30% by 2025, and then they were supposed to completely eliminate it by 2035. President Trump also ended a nicotine addiction study on monkeys at the FDA. I don't know many monkeys who smoke, and banned several dog experiments at the Veterans Administration. Joe Biden upended all of these plans to phase out the testing, and he renewed testing in these cruel and horrific experiments, which I think, based on many doctors I've spoken to, have no scientific or medical value. But the Trump administration has worked even harder to end this outdated practice. The new administration has already begun ending animal testing at the FDA and the EPA. It's also canceled grants for many of these cruel research projects, saving taxpayers millions of dollars. Now, although PETA keeps making media rounds claiming victory for many of the hard-won gains actually done by White Coast Waste, they remain the only advocacy organization to shut down any government primate lab in nearly a decade, any government dog testing labs in the last 20 years, and any government cat lab in the last 40 years. So I think the credit belongs to the folks at White Coast Waste. They are a nonprofit. I have worked as a volunteer with them to end this horrific series of experiments on dogs and cats. I urge you to check out their website. Once again, I am merely a volunteer. Meanwhile, recruits are flooding into the Border Patrol's ranks after years of a difficulty and poor morale. Customs and Border Protection has seen a massive boost in the recruiting numbers after Joe Biden left the presidency. Under President Donald Trump, the Customs and Border Protection Agency has had a 44% spike in the applications from January to May of 2025 compared to the same period in 2024, according to a report out yesterday. Under Biden, the Customs and Border Protection struggled to stem the tide of millions of illegal immigrants, while the administration mostly ignored its requests for help, which caused even lower recruitment figures, while low morale caused a record number of suicides among agents to spike. During the Biden years, the Customs and Border Protection Agency tallied a whopping 8.5 million border encounters, as well as 1.7 million known getaways. More than 250 illegal migrants encountered at the southern border between 20 and 21 were known to be on a terror watch list. How many slipped through the border that we cannot identify? On his way out of the agency, former Customs and Border Protection Commissioner Chris Magnus said in 2022 that morale was the worst it's ever been. Well, understandable. Magnus was told to step down by former Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas, or else he would have been fired for coming out and telling the truth. Let's face it, the policy on our southern border of the Biden administration was one of open borders, with as many as 20 million illegals flooding into the country. President Donald Trump now struggling with the federal courts over his executive authority to expel and deport these people. And he has talked openly about the possibility that he will suspend habeas corpus, declaring a national emergency in order to secure his executive authority to crack down on illegal immigration immediately, which he has been doing, hampered by the courts. Border apprehensions plummeted in the first months of his office, hitting a 15-year low in February, according to DHS. Other divisions said they've seen marked improvement in performance. In fact, border crossings are down 93% since Donald Trump became president. The U.S. Coast Guard has seen an uptick in drug seizures as well, capturing 11% more cocaine in fiscal 2025, far more than they interdicted during the entire preceding year. With over 4,250 new recruits having signed up and an increase of 1,200 relative to the same period in 2024, the Coast Guard has seized over 110,000 pounds of cocaine and marijuana worth almost $1.5 billion. Additionally, the Secret Service has had their recruitment spike as well, with 200% more applications so far this year. For years, the previous administration demoralized and denied resources to our brave men and women in law enforcement, including the Secret Service. Now we finally see that we are reinvigorating the Secret Service and providing it with the resources our brave men and women need to do their jobs. In the meantime, FBI Director Kash Patel has announced that, he's shutting down the infamous agency's current headquarters in D.C. That's right, FBI Director Kash Patel announced that he will keep his promise to shut down the J. Edgar Hoover building in Washington, D.C. The FBI is leaving the Hoover building because this building is unsafe for our workforce, Patel announced. The FBI is 38,000 when we're fully manned, which we are currently not. In the National Capital Region, there were 11,000 FBI employees. That's a third of the workforce. So now Patel is taking 1,500 of those people and moving them out. Every state is going to get an addition. When we do things like that, Patel said, we inspire people to become intel agents and say, we want to work with the FBI. In the next 3, 6, or 9 months, we're going to do that. We want the American men and women to know that we're going to be working at the premier law enforcement agency in the country, and we're going to give you a building that is commensurate with that. Kash Patel is another example of the massive upgrade in personnel America has enjoyed under Donald Trump as president. Before Trump took office, the head of the FBI was James Comey, who as of today seems to be in deep trouble. Now, those who say that he will be jailed have to recognize that, yes, we have due process in this country, so he would have to be charged, and he would have to be tried, and he would have to be found guilty. Remains to be seen as to whether any of that will actually happen. Meanwhile, the House Republicans are blocking a move moving to block an estimated 1.4 million illegal aliens from receiving America's taxpayer-funded Medicaid as Democrats struggle to message their support for this unpopular position. The House Energy and Commerce Committee completed its markup of a portion of the budget reconciliation bill Wednesday morning after an all-night session which included a provision blocking anyone unable to verify their citizenship, nationality, or a satisfactory immigration status from Medicaid coverage. I believe that's the way it should be. The committee projects 1.4 million illegals will be removed from the program due to these new requirements. So this is yet another part of the golden age, an old age of responsibility where only those who are legally entitled to government benefits will be allowed to get them. The House Republicans need to support the president's America First agenda to get our wild spending and this misuse of taxpayer dollars under control. If you're just tuning in, this is the Stone Zone, and I'm Roger Stone. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial because, we'll be right back.
The Stone Zone
on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Five immersive worlds, one amazing theme park. Get ready to explore the all-new Universal Epic Universe, featuring the wizarding world of Harry Potter, Ministry of Magic, Super Nintendo World, How to Train Your Dragon, Isle of Berk, and Dark Universe. Epic Universe opens May 22nd at Universal Orlando Resort. Our universe will never be the same. Tickets and packages on sale now at universalorlando.com.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC, licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030.
Hey besties, listen up. I have a secret to tell you. LinkedIn now has improved the job search experience for nurses. Search by your specialty, the shifts you want to work, and the salary that you want to make. With so many employers hiring on LinkedIn, finding the perfect job is even more simplified. So don't spend months searching. Go to linkedin.com/nurses and find out why in the past year, more than 1.5 million nurses have used LinkedIn to search for their next role. That's linkedin.com/nurses.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Stone Zone. We are taking your questions. We have some left over actually from yesterday as well. You can send us your questions by going to AskStone at stonezone.com, AskStone at stonezone.com. Let's go to our questions. Here's a question from Alex in Tallahassee, Florida, says, tell me something about President Richard Nixon that I didn't know. Okay, well, Richard Nixon could play the violin, the piano, the violin, the saxophone, the clarinet, and the accordion, except he couldn't read music. He was entirely self-taught. There's something about our president that you didn't know. Here is a question from Barry in Chillicothe, who says, what 3 books would you recommend that everyone read? Well, there's a softball. First and foremost, my book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ, New York Times bestseller, which I think is the most definitive tome regarding the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. But I would also have to recommend the biography of Napoleon Bonaparte, Napoleon, A Life by Andrew Roberts, one of my favorite books. I think it is the top modern biography. Now, most people don't realize that Napoleon Bonaparte was not French. He was actually Italian. He was born in Corsica, so he was a Corsican. And at the time of his birth, Corsica was controlled by Italy. In fact, Napoleon didn't speak French until he was in his 20s. His formative language was Italian. Now, if you think about it, it makes sense because, well, I doubt any Frenchman could conquer Europe or half the civilized world, but the fact that he's Italian makes perfect sense. The most famous story about Napoleon, of course, has to do with his first escape from exile. The British sent him to they sent him to the island of Elba, where he ultimately escaped, leaving with a small corps of less than 200 men and landing in the south of France, beginning his march to Paris. Beginning with less than 200 men, he had a force of 50,000 men by the time he got to Paris to reclaim power. Sorry, no Frenchman could do that, but that would be one of the books I would recommend. The other book I'd recommend, frankly, it's not easy. It's 3 books, really. The Edmund Morris trilogy on Theodore Roosevelt, The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt, Theodore Rex, and Colonel Roosevelt. These are widely regarded as the definitive works, spanning over 2,000 pages. Covers Theodore Roosevelt's life in exhaustive detail, including his early years as a frail child, all the way to the presidency, and, of course, his post-White House adventures. Actually, the first book, The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt, won a Pulitzer Prize and a National Book Award. It takes you all the way through his final campaign. Roosevelt, of course, bolted the Republican Party in 1912, ran as the progressive or bull moose candidate. People don't realize this, but Woodrow Wilson, the Democrat, came in first. Theodore Roosevelt, running as independent on the progressive or bull moose ticket, came in second, and incumbent President William Howard Taft actually ran third in that race. Thanks for joining us here on the Stone Zone. Until next time, God bless you and Godspeed.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?